This episode of Heroes of the Horn is brought to you by Kaienna Sedai. The three were on their feet atop the pedestal, and he could not tell which shrieked which answer. To marry the daughter of the 9 moons, to die and live again and live once more, a part of what was, to give up half the light of the world to save the world. Together they howled like steam escaping under pressure. Go to Rudion, son of battles. Go to Rudion, trickster. Go, gambler, go.
Welcome to Heroes of the Horn, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Sir Matt.
And I am Sir Ezra. Welcome to our Wheel of Time book club. The horn has sounded, and we have answered the call. Today we are covering The Shadow Rising Part 3, chapters 11 through 20, and in our village council we will be discussing Angreal, sa'angreal, and tir'angreal.
And as we have a new little teaser to discuss today.
Big time.
So Watt on Prime, which is the Wheel of Time Twitter, about a month ago was when we got that audio file. And they said, then they tweeted again the other day and said, everybody stay tuned for Wednesday. And we now have The Blade.
The Blade, man. It was awesome. It was really cool to see. It was really, really cool to see what that object was going to look like. It's such an important part to the first quarter of this series, and so it's Rand's sword. It's Tam's sword, right? Rand will take it, and it's such a wonder. We wonder for quite some time, how did Tam get a sword like this? A power wrought sword, a heron marked blade. They only give those to blade masters. What?
Well, is Tam a blade master?
Is he a blade master? I don't know, right?
That's the question.
That's the question. But yeah, no, it was really cool. They kind of, similar to what they did with the Wine Spring Inn, they zoomed in on the text, right? Right in the book, kind of highlighted, bolded in black the words that describe the sword, and then, pull back, and then boom, we see the sword, and we see them kind of, going through and making it and working on it, like the, concept art, the whole thing, just a little kind of graphic they put together with some music that was behind there. I heard, I think Rafe answered one of the questions about that music and said it's not necessarily music we're going to hear in the series. It was just something to kind of, it was really just promotional, but at the same time, it was cool. I mean, it sounded cool. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's cool. And it does look like the sword that we did see in some of those leaked set photos. And people are saying, is that the Heron Mark blade? Is it? I think, that sword had a scabbard on it. So it is hard to say that is exactly the one, but it is certainly in the same style now that we've actually seen the blade.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I guess I have to, since we're talking about it, I'll go ahead and say it. One of the questions I think that Rafe got later, and we're going to talk about all of them. We're going to read those in a separate thing here. But he talked about the swords, all of these swords and things that were power wrought, things that were made with the power. Would they all look similar? Does every blade master have the same type of sword? And the answer is no. He made sure that they each were individualized and they're from, specific region, depending on who is the blade master that holds the sword. So, I mean, he was given some pretty cool details. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But, I mean, it was epic, right? I mean, did you talk to your brother any about the sword or see what he?
No, not yet.
I bet he freaking loved it. I bet
we did. We did do a Patreon episode with him as well. So certainly check that out. But no, haven't talked to anybody else about seeing the sword. But it's cool, and it's a short little 30-second teaser. Especially with production being halted until April, I'm sure that we will get maybe once a month. Seems like maybe the pace they're going to go on. So who knows what we're going to get next. I think maybe my prediction of us getting some sort of Super Bowl package, like it's part of like an Amazon Prime Super Bowl commercial. I don't know if we're going to get that anymore or not, since some of it was kind of halted due to COVID. in the Czech Republic. They can't film there anymore, so until April. Seems to be the case. Maybe something tiny. I like like 5 seconds or something, but we'll see.
Yeah. I'm all for it. Anything that they want to give us, I'm here for, and I think it's really cool. It's just neat, when we cover. Well, we're going to talk here in a sec about how many hours and how many things, how much time and effort went into just the design of this sword. And so it's pretty cool. Like, the magnitude of this series is huge. They're putting a lot of money, time, effort into this, and they're pouring themselves into it. These are fans of the series as well, and they're in there just they're looking at the book. They're using it for reference. I mean, they're really trying to make this authentic and feel like Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, and I love that. I just think people are going to be, because it's such a good series. There's so many pros to it that I want other people to experience it, and I want them to see this show and be like, wow, is there more? Let me go to the books, and then kind of go from there. So it was cool. I hope we get like another object, whether it's I don't know what they would want to do, if it's something that Moraine is wearing, or if it's something, even just some of the costumes or outfits, or I don't really know what the object would be. That'd be a great question for people if you're, or just if you want to leave a comment or send us a pigeon, right? The hornofvalyria@gmail.com. Let us know what else, what might we want to see, I guess, some behind the scenes, some object that they're working on. I thought the blade I didn't think they would do that. I was shocked.
It's definitely not what I was expecting. I was, last time we got the little audio clip, I thought maybe we'd get another one. And it would, it was the audio clip with just some sort of like, computerized, digital, a visual of the Aes Sedai, symbol. So I thought it'd be something like this. I didn't know that they'd actually show us, something like that. So who knows what next month is going to be. I think it's going to be something, again, very small. I mean, obviously the Heronmark blade isn't small in the terms of the story and its importance, but it's not going to be a scene. It's not going to be, it's going to be like a set photo, right? Here's an object that we will have, going forward.
Right. Yeah. Which is cool. I don't think we need to go. I would like to see, like, what's almost better is to see that sword in, Tam or Rand's hand, and to see them using it, like to see that first. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm still glad we got to see the blade, but I totally get the idea that we would want to see all of this in a trailer. But I just think it's different. They can't do maybe what they typically would have done in promotional material, because you still want to build hype for this. You want to get more and more people searching it and interested. So that way you get a nice big push when it comes out. But yeah, I don't know. It's pretty awesome. I will take it. I will take whatever they want to give us, and I hope we see some more behind the scenes concept art or whatever. So
yeah. So, all right, Ez, let's head over to. Actually, we have some Rafe Judkins comments to get to. So he has answered 10 questions about the show. He did this last month as well. And so we have a handful of questions here that he is going to answer about kind of production.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. So Rafe Judkins answers tweets about the making of the Wheel of Time, and this is to kind of celebrate the release of the first look at the Heronmark blade. So he's answering these questions. Basically, it was first come, first serve, first 10 people to tweet in their question in the next 30 minutes about production design on the show in general and how we're approaching it. He would reply to those, which is pretty cool. So let me see if I got there. I mean, they've kind of I think laid these out here for us. So let's look at this. You've got Mike who has got in there with the first question. What weapons and their individualistic characteristics are integral to particular characters, especially with Mat, Rand, and Perrin? Will the show give a similar focus, or will the weapons mostly be just there? His response to that was, you cannot even imagine the number of hours that go into each person's weapon. I was in at least 20 meetings about the dagger that Egwene has, and that's not even a major weapon in the books. There's a whole team of people. We have a big book. We have a few big book fans on the props team, and that's what I thought was amazing, right? That these you've got fans who are fans of the books and they're in there working on the props. That is huge. You want that because they're paying attention to those details. Sometimes when you read the series initially, it's hard to like people's visuals are a little bit different, and you have to go back and really focus in on some of those minor details, the descriptions, you know. So I was like, that's awesome. That's a lot. That's 20 meetings on a dagger, man.
Right.
You know?
That's not even that big of a that's a big of a thing, but it is her character and design and things like that. Got one here from Nakomi. It looks like. Have you filmed any of the production, design, manufacturing of props, etc. for behind the scenes program? I have to say, I really hope so. Rafe had said, of course, an amazing team has been picked up as much as they can of the process so that after the show aired, you can see all of the work and love that went into creating these details, large and small. So maybe we get some sort of, like with The Mandalorian, we have the Disney Gallery, which would be really cool where they can talk about this, and so we can get some of that, like, oh, what's it going to look like going forward?
Yeah, that would be really cool. I would love to see that afterwards for sure. We don't want to see anything ahead of time, but afterwards, I love seeing that type of stuff. Some people do, some people don't, but I think it's cool that they're doing it because it's there if you want it, and if not, that's fine. All right, so we got, let's see, one here from Kevin. How are the sword forms going to be presented? Is the style going to be pulled from a specific region of sword fighting, or are they going to be spread out over many regions? And Rafe answered that with, we have a fight time and sword master on the show who has built a fighting style unique to each weapon and culture. So if you see a Borderlander fight with a heron mark blade, it might feel different than a Shanchen. That's merely hypothetical, of course, with a wink. So that's neat because, yeah, you have the forms, right? You're going through the forms. We get that perspective from Lan teaching Rand, but are there different things? You know what I mean? Are there similarities, but yet slightly different stances or ways in which you approach the fight? I think that it's got to be that way. Different regions doing different things, especially when the Shanchen come over and they're very much removed, from this region. So
yeah. Well, you got another one here from Mazo saying, since we are on the topic of swords, what are some of the inspirations for armor design? Is there quite a bit of variation between the Andoran and the Shinaran armor? He says, Rafe says, yes. Our costume team, led by the amazing Isis Masudadin, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, started by building a map of the entire Wheel of Time world, carving out what each nation/culture looked like to make sure they're differentiated, and honoring what's in the books, and then, of course, diving back into Two Rivers.
Yeah, wow, okay. Yeah, the inspirations behind those two things. Yeah, the costume team looking at they have a map, right? They started building a map of the entire Wheel of Time world. That's awesome because you and I often pull up the map and we say, where are we at here? And it really does help to understand and help you feel the difference in these regions and these countries and these different groups. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Because, yeah, you when you walk in, we're going to need it because not only are the names, like when you go to Tanchico or you go to the Aiel Waste or you're in Camelin, those have got to feel different and they've got to look different. And it's got to help people who are just kind of coming into the series going, oh, it's that group of people again, right? We're back to that region or whatever. And I think we're going to need that because it is, like I said, it's a massive series. And so we're going to need that visual cue, that help, that kind of reminder. So, yeah. Let's see. Jack. Looks like we got Jack here. How is the set of the Two Rivers designed architecturally? It would seem easy to make it homely and medieval, but because of its location and history, are there any other inspirations coming into play? And Rafe replies with, when the books came out, they felt so blazingly fresh and different and new, so we want that same thing to be true of the show. And if you see us leaning away from certain elements in the books, oftentimes it's because audiences have now seen them before. And he kind of continues on here. Unfortunately, sometimes even in cases where the book to screen adaptations are from books that that kind of cribbed into Wheel of Time. Okay, well, I think what he's saying, right, is that this is basically this is going to seem fresh. Like since that book series when it came out, and when Wheel of Time came out, it felt blazingly fresh and different. So what I'm getting from that, Matt, is that this is also going to be different. It's not going to just feel like, I don't think he wants us to feel like, well, that's just another medieval set. You know what I mean? This has got to be, no, it's the Two Rivers and it's something completely different. It doesn't look like anything we've seen before. It's fresh, it's new, and that's going to be intriguing in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and I got another one here too, because some of these questions are pretty similar. This is from Erie. Says, what balance are you striking between recreating what's in the books word for word and letting the artist have creativity? He says, what's really important to me is that when we're diverging from the books, that we know we're doing it. So every piece of production design, from shoes to swords to the White Tower itself, begins with pages of quotes from the books about that place or thing. So, yeah, I mean, obviously you can't. You've got to adapt it for television. It's got to work for television. You can't make a 15. You can't set out with, hey, we're going to make a 15 season show or whatever. You can't get every character in there, and then making sure that things are designed. I mean. He actually goes on here to another question as if you're okay with me pulling that up as well. Yeah. This one was from Cold Witch Stormbless. Says, how do you decide what needs to be physically made and what's going to be effects, right? That practical effects for CG. He says, I want things to be as real as possible. So in any place that we possibly can, we've built things instead of using effects. Our show could be all green screen, all CGI, but I think you'll be surprised how much it actually built and touched and held by our actors. So, I mean, that's going to be that whole world, the characters, what's CG, what's not. Then you have to have the actual filming location to film there. And then trying to craft it to where it all looks like a world that fits together. Like I think Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, for that as well, did a very good job of building these worlds that feel like they fit. Right. Even when you go to places that are very different and stuff like that, it still feels like it fits together in that sort of context, because you have to have that too. Like you don't just want to make something like, I think it's easier in the book to have characters feel more and more different, but in the show they kind of make them, it seems like things get a little more similar. And so you'll build kind of your own style and stuff like that, and I think it'll all blend together well.
No, I totally agree with you. Well, and because again, this is all about props and costumes and set design and all that kind of stuff. We have another one here, Amis the Wise. This is pretty good. So, what influences were used in designing the travel and the daily wear for the Emond's Field 5, but also Moraine and Lan? Considering how they are described while on the road, but how they appear while in a city setting: rough-hewn wool, linen, silks, leathers. And then specifically like the warder. I mean, that's different, right? Rafe said, in my mind, Moraine and Lan have spent the better part of their time together on the road, and the Emond's Field 5 grew up in a place where knowing how to survive in the wilds was a necessity. So they are all incredibly practical with what they wear and travel with. And when they're in a city and not needing to leave soon, you could see different looks from them. I totally think that's... So the deeper you get into the series, they spend more time in cities. And, well, right now where we are in the Shadow Rising, we've been in Tyr for how long, right? We've been in Tyr for, quite some time. We get a little, relaxed. We put our travel gear, we take that off, and we're wearing things. Our characters are always kind of shocked by the new costumes that they see or the new attire when they go into a new city or a new place. And then they try to well, that seems kind of nice. Like, let me give that a go. Our guys are getting, different coats, different types of embroidery on there, and the girls are wearing different types of dresses and stuff as well. It's really cool. So I cannot wait to see how that works. But then you put on the old travel cloak when you leave and you go out, and that is it's a little thing, but it's something that when I read, like it like that, following our characters as they travel is not something we get a whole lot of in, I'll just say it, in Lord of the Rings. Like, it's like, well, I'm sorry, in Lord of the Rings, they are traveling all of the time. We're not stopped in like a city or a place where we're changing our, what we're wearing quite a bit. And in this, we really follow them. We'll go chapters where we're on the road, and then chapters numerous where we're in a city. That happens sometimes in Game of Thrones as well too, but it's just, I think it's emphasized way more, and Robert Jordan really pays attention to where his characters are at, and when they are wearing something, like when they were rushed out of a city and they didn't change or whatever, like you notice that. You notice your character's still wearing a coat that they shouldn't be wearing, or that it's too hot to wear in the Aiel waste or something, and it's like, wow. So
right.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm going to say also, I think he answered a lot more than 10 questions.
I think so,
I'm just
too.
Scrolling so maybe we'll just each pick maybe a couple more. So, yeah. Now this one, I don't necessarily know the importance of, because I feel like it might be a little bit past where I'm at.
Okay.
But the question was, will Moraine still have a staff at the outset? I know she says it helps her to focus, but seeing as how she just tossed it aside after it was charred coming out of the ways, and she never replaced it, it doesn't really seem necessary. He says, we're approaching this as an adaptation of the entire series, not just each book individually. So hopefully season 1 will feel more like the entire book series of Wheel of Time than it does the Eye of the World. With that in mind, no Moraine staff. Let chaos ensue.
Oh gosh, I love it. Yeah, let chaos ensue. That's interesting. I mean, it's cool. It's one of those things that I kind of, where we are in our reading and as we move forward, I kind of forget about that. Like when you go back, and something he said earlier is these design teams, they have sort of the original descriptions of the characters. And so when they go back and they look at like what they've designed for Moraine or for land, they'll go back to, I'm guessing, Eye of the World, The Great Hunt and things like that. And they will look at what originally they had down on this dock to kind of figure out what they're going to do for this costume design or this character or whatever. But it seems like they made the decision out the gate to say no staff. And I like this because, as he said, they're adapting the entire series. So they are looking at it from like, they know where, and this is different for you and I because you and I are doing a kind of a non-spoiler thing, and we're in the Shadow Rising, and we're working our way through. But they're looking at, they know where Moraine's story ultimately will end up at. They know where she's going to go and what will happen with her, and so they've said, you know what? Look, it's only there for this portion of time. Let's not get distracted with that. Let's look at, what is something, an item or an artifact or whatever that she has throughout the entire series that's really important. And that's one of those that it even right now, I mean, I don't think you and I have ever once talked about her staff or anything, I don't even know that you and I noticed that she had a staff, right? I mean, like, what?
Right.
So yeah, let chaos ensue. That's fine. We don't, Moraine doesn't need to have, if she had a staff, it'd be cool. I'd be down, but if not, it's totally fine. Fine with me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There was one more kind of throwaway question that I found where somebody was asking if people are doing intense calf exercises. Says we need them all well tuned or whatever. And he said, yeah, I can in fact confirm that I am not doing those, but the actors are constantly doing those. So I was like, okay.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Let's see. Let's find another one here real quick. Music. Okay, the music. How is that related to the show? This is what I kind of brought up. Did we just get a glimpse of the theme? He said this is not music. So this is in reference to the Blade. Remember the little kind of teaser that this music is not from the show itself. When it is, I'll make sure you know it, and it will hopefully feel very uniquely Wheel of Time. And that's awesome because I'm hoping we have that theme. You know what I mean? Like we've got some type of theme similar to what we have in Game of Thrones or whatever, that we're just like, wow, that's awesome. And then we're all playing it to get hyped for episodes. And yeah, we want something that belongs to Wheel of Time. I want that as well. I really want to, I want it to have that feel. So, all right. Yeah, that's, there's a couple more, but I mean, I think for the most part we're pretty good on that. Yeah, we got through most of them. The idea here is that they're paying attention to detail. That's what I'm getting, right? They're paying real close attention to detail, and they have spent tons and tons of hours and money and manpower just to work on these things and make sure that everything kind of feels right. We focus a lot on like the cast and the actors and stuff, and they look great, and everything Rafe has said about them, I am down. I'm in love with all of them. I think they're going to be great, and I love that some of them maybe haven't had. They're just lesser known. That's the only way know to put it, and haven't been as many projects that we here know in the States, and so I'm happy to see these individuals come on screen, and then what is so cool for me is to see them garbed in such a way, and to have them in their costumes that look and feel like Wheel of Time, and it just, I don't know, it's gonna be awesome, man. It's so cool.
It is
cool.
It is awesome. All right, Ez, let's move over to our main kind of like main show. I guess it's the reread as our first read for me, as we call it here. So today we're talking chapters 11 through 20. Chapter 11, What Lies Hidden. Chapter 12, Tanchico or the Tower. Chapter 13, Rumors. Chapter 14's Customs of Maine. Chapters 15, Into the Doorway. 16, Leave Takings. 17, Deceptions. 18, Into the Ways. 19, The Wave Dancer, and 20, Winds Rising.
Yeah. So, wow, this is like I said, we've been in tier for a long time. We just keep hanging out here for quite a bit. It's a place we've been hearing about for a long time, and we spend some good quality time there. Rand has, in the last book, he defeated one of the Forsaken, and he has claimed Kalendor. Moraine was, instrumental in all of that, and it's like, what do you do next? What is the next, big move for Rand? He's been studying. He's been looking at the prophecies, working with Matt. He's got his two Tavir in there, right? So he's got Perrin and Matt, who are in the city. And by the time when we get to the end of this part, we will have made some really big decisions about where we're going to go and what we're going to do, where each of them is going to go. They're each going to kind of have an arc, and there's going to be rumors out there in the land. Rand has to go fulfill the prophecies. He has more he has to do. The Forsaken are plotting against him, and there's an attack going on in the Two Rivers. Their home is under attack, and it's this attempt to draw Rand back, and he will have none of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What were your, I guess, this initial, where do you want to start?
Well, I guess this block of chapters, I feel like, and I think you said this last time we recorded, and you said that just get ready because everything is about to change. Yeah. And I feel like where this ends, because I've gone a little bit into chapter 21, so I feel like 22, 23 is where, like, okay, all hell is about to break loose, which is what, like, you've been kind of telling me, like, get ready is coming.
Right.
But it doesn't just happen just yet. But yeah, I mean, this block of chapters, it does, again, the first 10, I feel like I've always felt like it's like staging, all right, kind of, here's what happened. They do chapter 1 is like always kind of a summary, and chapter 10 is always like, okay, something happens that's going to set off like everything. And then after about chapter 20 and what seems like the first 4 books is like when, okay, now you get to the meat of this book.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so we're still kind of, and it's weird. Like we said, this is one of the biggest, we're actually going to do a couple additional parts on this book because it is so big. And it's just, even though it's only been these first 20 chapters, they're massive chapters, and there's been a lot of discussion and talk among characters. So
yeah, because I was looking at that as we were going to go forward, and I was like, oh man, just looking at the audiobook, I'm like, well, some of these chapters, there's like, I think it's like, I don't know, I think it's later in the book. I was just looking, and like 2 chapters it's like back to back over an hour each. Yep. And so I was like, okay, well, we may have to reformat this
yeah.
book. And there's actually I found it online. I don't have the name of it pulled up, but somebody broke down how many words per book and everything. It's like this huge graph, and it shows you everything. And these next 3 books are by far the biggest, with the exception of the final book.
Yeah.
And so these are like the biggest, and the last book was actually one of the shortest. So so 4, 5, and 6 are really big, and then 7, 8, and 9 are a lot smaller.
Yeah.
So those could actually end up being four parts, or just depends.
We were talking with your brother in our extended edition, and by the way, we're back with in the Shadow Rising, back to more extended editions. So it was cool to kind of talk to him about what that was like the pacing of all of this, because it is kind of wild. That these books are thick, but yet these are still fan favorites. These are still really some of the best books in the series. These next 3. And then you get to those ones that are shorter, but yet it's called kind of like the slog, right? And people are like slowly marching through. They're not even as thick, but the way these are written, and that shows you it's not really about the words. It's more about just like the action that's happening. Because I'm currently in Fires of Heaven, and I am just blitzing through that more so than I was here with the Shadow Rising. It's just kind of weird, like how you can almost get on this journey where when it's action packed, you're just locked in. Like time will go by, and I'm like, wow, I just read, I just listened/read 2 chapters that you said are over an hour long each, and then it felt like it was like 20, 30 minutes went by. So, anyways, I totally feel you, because we are in I've been saying it. We're in this big setup. You could start to kind of see, right, in these batch of chapters where our characters are going to go. So I'll say this just in general, and then I'm gonna get Matt's kind of reaction on this. So you have, and part of the reason why this is so intense, right, is you have your Emmons Field 5. You have everyone here. We're all here. You've got Matt, Rand, Perrin. Okay, you've got Egwene, Nynaeve. You've got Elaine, right? You've got Moraine. You've got Lan. Now you've introduced all these. Avienda is here. You have Ruark. You have all these Aiel. You're the first of Mayen. Barrelane is there. We just got introduced to who is this person? I mean, she seems pretty cool. So you have all of that going on, and everyone is together. They're all together right here, and some major time is spent right here, because we're about by the end of this, and it's not spoiler. By the end of this, we are on our way. I think in this batch of chapters, don't we get to the part where Nynaeve and Elaine will go their separate way? They continue to hunt the Black Anja. Yes. That's the final 2 chapters, which I think we're going to kind of maybe do as a part of our extended edition after this main show. But yeah, I mean, and then Perrin, right? Perrin's planning to go back to the 2 rivers, and then Rand. I mean, Rand is making his own preparations. So you finally have everybody here. We're all together. We stay here, and then now we're about to go on this major, adventure. Again, it's the second big wave of moving past getting Kalendor. So I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good. Yeah, and a lot of it is tier, as as you said, right? A lot of it is tier, and just because there's so many characters, and because they're all here at the same time, it's harder. It's harder to kind of progress forward, because you have to there's a lot of bouncing back and forth.
Well, it would be odd if Rand didn't talk to, if he was in tier and didn't talk to Matt and didn't spend some quality time with Perrin, and that those characters then didn't talk to other characters and stuff, so that it feels necessary for everyone to kind of talk, almost like in some way, whether they're like a lot of times, like the girls were coming in trying to help Rand with channeling, previously, and Matt, and we had the bubble of evil was attacking, and people thought Rand was going crazy. Rand is starting to distance himself from Moraine and say, hey, I'm going to do this on my own. So anyways, yeah, just to kind of, I'll just do like a brief, if you're cool with this, I'll just do like a brief kind of rundown of the chapters and get your thoughts on that individual chapter. So like chapter 11, What Lies Hidden, this is all about going to the dream world, right? I mean, this is all about Egwene kind of going in, and she meets Amis, and she is basically told, like, you need to learn, like, if you're going to be in Teleron Riyadh, then you need to come and learn from us, the wise ones. So we come out of that, and we say, who are the wise ones, right? First of all, I don't trust the Aes Sedai, okay? I'm just kidding. I do trust the Aes Sedai. But we were told not to, right? We were told, don't trust the Aes Sedai. And now we have these individuals called the Wise Ones who are, like, talking down a little bit to, trying to put Egwene in her place. It's been rumored that she's a dreamer, but she is not using the stone ring anymore to get into Teleron-Riyadh. She wants to do it on her own. And she is starting to kind of, work through that. So that was neat. I mean, the next couple, we'll have kind of in this batch of chapters, I mean, we do explore that realm a little bit more, and we get a little bit, further insight into it.
Yeah, and that's been something that they've slowly been hinting at and slowly been getting towards. And a lot of, I mean, obviously people have had a lot of different dreams that are important, and they see things in them. I don't know, and this may just be me because I'm not far enough along to know the all of everybody's dreams. Do they take place in Teleron-Riyadh, the dream world, or are they just regular dreams, or are, like, Rand's dreams with Balsamon, are those something different? Are they, or is it part of this dream world?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I know for a fact that that's going to be explored a lot in our next part. It's so this chapter right here is the setup for all of that, where all the answers that we have about that are going to be answered in our next part for sure. There have been some answers in that, like when Egwene is dreaming about stuff, we are learning about this world, how she has been seeing Perrin and Rand in this world as well, but she doesn't see a lot of other people, so she does kind of come across Lanfear and the Forsaken, at one point having their conversation in a previous book. So she's seeing things that would still kind of unclear. Is she seeing, are they visions, or is she actually coming across their dreams, or just what they're doing in Teleron-Riyadh? Are those things different? All of that in the next part is going to be answered pretty clearly for us. So I think we'll just kind of save that, because it is something that has been, it's one of those things that there's a payoff, right? There's a big payoff in this series, and that you've been wondering this whole time. You're kind of confused. You're meant to be kind of confused about this world, because we're falling into this world through Egwene, and Egwene then comes across a Wise One right here, who basically is also was previously a maiden of the spear. Avienda, when she comes out, she knows who that person is, and knows that she's a Wise One who gave up the spear to she was Vars I always say it wrong. Vars Dismise. It's the Maidens of the Spear, right? So she laid down her spear to become one of the Wise Ones, and so Avienda kind of lets her know about that. But in that, when she was in that dream, that she gets her clothes get changed. She's left like naked in Teleron-Riyadh, like she's totally like messed with and almost scolded, and basically said, "Hey, come to, the Isle." With the Threefold land, yeah, and that's where she's going to kind of train her. She actually says specifically to come to Cold Rock's Hold is where Amis wants her to come. So that she wants to know more about this, and she sees this as training. I love it about Egwene. It's like, this is what she loves. She loves to learn new stuff, and she sees it as a talent, something that they saw in the tower, that she had a talent for this. So to get better at it, to learn what they know, she has to go there. And so she's going to. So yeah, we'll answer all those questions, in the next part for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And, remember that in that dream, she glimpses a blonde woman with a silver bow. Is who she is. Yeah. And so, yes. So she doesn't, she doesn't know who that is.
Right. Right.
Just, yeah. Also, by the way, she does find Sever Angreal, which we will cover in our village council. Which we skipped. That's my bad. But we can talk more about that after. After the chapter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So chapter 12 as Tanchico or the Tower.
Yeah.
That's where Egwene wakes up. from her trip to Teleron Riyadh, and Egwene tells them meeting Amos, and her orders to go to Cold Rock's Hold. Egwene asks Aviendha if she knows Amos or the Hold. From Aviendha, they learned that she was Fardaris Mai before she became a Dreamwalker and the Wise One. Yeah.
Yeah, Fardaris Mai. Yeah, that is what I was trying to think of. Yeah. So, yes, exactly. And this is like the decision is Tanchico or the Tower. Where do you go? Egwene knows where she's going to go. And she actually asked Aviendha, like, would you accompany me back? Would you help me get back to your land, essentially, and to find this person? And Aviendha says she'd rather go to Tanchico. She would rather not be involved in this. And you're like, wait, why? I mean, she's friends with Egwene. She like, it just doesn't make any sense. And then you find out that Moiraine produces a letter from the Wise Ones stating that Aviendha is to come to them at Rudion. And you're like, wait, what? And so Aviendha, you're supposed to go there anyways. And then her behavior is just like, almost like she throws a temper tantrum or something. And she's very much proclaiming that she's a Maiden of the Spear. She does not want to go, and she's not going to run back and forth to these Wise Ones just when they call, and she storms out of the room. And so that's kind of this crazy, we start to realize something is going on with Aviendha, and we don't know really what's up. I mean, we're going to explore more of that later. And I think, I would imagine you're not supposed to disobey the Wise Ones. I mean,
certainly does not appear to be so.
Yeah. So yeah, Aviendha's cool. What do you think of Aviendha so far? I guess I
like her. It is kind of a weird dynamic because she's just so different than the the Aes Sedai women, right? Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine. She's just so different than them, and so she's always kind of providing like her own insight to things, and it's always like very different, and it's just a weird gang to be together, right? It's a really kind of, they just could not feel more different.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it is definitely well, one of the things. Let me back up here real quick. So something that's mentioned when they're talking about Amis, she says that she is let me see where is this that talks about the Aiel relationships, and that Amis is sister wife to Leanne, who is Aviendha's sister mother, and she basically describes this custom in which the Aiel women can marry the same man, that two women marrying one man, and that just for our Emond's Fielders just blows their mind. What? They can't believe that. And Aviendha's like, wait, that's not like normal here. I mean, like they're so different.
Right. You have sister wives, you have sister mothers. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah.
Right. And so they're starting to, and they like Aviendha, and Aviendha likes them. And it's just kind of funny. They have, if you watch Aviendha, she often talks about wetlanders, and she talks about like how soft they are in this country and stuff, but yet like she loves these wetlanders. I mean, she's seeing that they're harder, that they are not what she thought and what she's, grown to believe. So it's just interesting how two people from very different parts of the world can have very different beliefs and customs, right? But be really good friends and really have each other's backs. And that's, I think, a lesson in this story that I love. So yeah, that was kind of cool. Yeah, she's different. She's something. She is next level. I really like Aviendha a lot. She's really cool, and she's that person who will make you laugh in that, like, she is super serious. She is super not to be messed with. She is I'll just say it, she's badass. She's badass, and but she challenges us because she challenges all of our characters because of what their beliefs are and their customs.
Right, and how they've grown up.
Yeah.
All right, as chapter 13, rumors. So we get back to Matt, right, and he's kind of alone in a tower. He's got there's barmaids around him. There's beers flowing.
Yeah.
He's and there's rolling dice. People are rolling dice, gambling. He's sitting with his back to the wall where he can see all the doors, but for once he is not interested in the dice or the waitress's ankles. He goes over the attack on the stone by the shadow spawn in his head. How a gray man had hunted him down, only be replaced by a Murdral after he killed it. Just when he thought he was almost certainly doomed, a group of Trollocs of all things come to his rescue. While his mind is, recollecting what happened that night, he finds his finger has drawn an open door on the table. So Matt is so weird because it's like all of these things are just happening, and it feels like he has no. It's like Perrin, we still don't really know enough about the wolf stuff yet, but it's like so specific that it's kind of like, okay, well, we kind of have an idea. Okay, it's like something to do with wolves. It's something to do with an ancient power or whatever. Matt's feels like it's all over the place.
Right, and this is what I really like, because if all of them just had some power that they were born with, or that they, I love that Rand's is similar to a lot of the other power users, and so we're like, okay, cool, we can kind of rate him, engage him, and pair him up to the Forsaken and Moiraine and everyone else. Perrin, whatever's going on, whatever this is, this connection he has with wolves and the dream world, it's ancient. It's well beyond even this age of legends. It's like far beyond that. It was something that was even during their time, even during the time of the age of legends, they would have said that's beyond us. We don't even know what that is. That's something sort of like Min. Min is that ancient mystic type of power, which is pretty cool. So then you get to Matt, as you say, and Matt is a guy who we're going to find out he draws that, he doesn't even realize he's doing it. He draws that door because on his mind, he's been thinking about the door that has answers that Egwene said Moiraine may be using, this Tarmon Gai'don that he could go into and sort of see get some answers to some stuff, possibly. And he will go into that door. He decides to go there. But, and remember before, he had an urge to leave. He didn't know where he wanted to go or what he had to do. He had this urge, but yet he was there was a part of him, his Ta'veren nature, that was pulling him and keeping him near Rand, and that Rand needed him to stay, and that's what the pattern required at this time. So then he's given information about this red door that we have down, down below in Tyr that we're going to visit here in a little bit, and so he's going to kind of go there. But the big thing is in this chapter is those rumors that things are happening in the two rivers. And it's weird, the way the Ta'veren talk to each other, right? The way Perrin and Matt kind of talk to each other. Perrin's almost saying he knows that Matt's not going back. Perrin knows that he has to go back. And Matt knows that I want to go back, but Perrin's going, and I have to stay with Rand. They somehow know, they get these feelings and these urges, this pull that tells them to stay or to go or to move. And so it's very interesting when you take a look at that. So I love it. I love it. But that's where we're at there.
Yeah. Okay, let's move to chapter 14, Customs of Ma'in. Now we're back with Perrin. Perrin shakes his head, after Matt leaves the room. There's no way that Matt would leave Rand to go back to the two rivers, right? Yeah. Perrin himself wishes there was a way to avoid going home, but he knows there isn't, and he has to fulfill his duty. Yep. He starts preparing for his trip back to the two rivers. His shoulder is still sore from the attack and his run with a Trolloc. While he is packing, Berlain all of a sudden shows up in his room, asking where he's going and telling him that she is leaving herself. When Perrin asks her why she is telling him all of this, she says she wants him to tell Rand. Perrin refuses, telling her he doesn't have any time to carry messages for anybody. Berlain is astonished Perrin would refuse her, and all of a sudden looks at Perrin in a new light. There you go. Yeah. She starts eyeing him and offers him a job in Ma'in, as her own personal blacksmith. At this very moment, Fael comes into the room. Berlain ignores her and steps closer to Perrin, touching him possessively.
Yeah, I mean, this is, who is this? She keeps showing up in people's, rooms, right? Berlain is she's there. She's trying to, again, it's all coming from, we did kind of a little special on her a few parts back, either part 1 or part 2, I can't remember. But Berlain is someone who she uses like her, honest to God, she says this, and it's said about her that like she knows that she is attractive to men, and she tries to use that as a sword, the same way you would use a sword in a fight.
Yeah.
She uses that
Her
to
feminine
advantage.
wiles.
Yeah, I mean she does, and so it's to try to secure these alliances, to make these pact deals or whatever, and it's all for her people and for her city state and to keep them safe. Sometimes it's hard to kind of tell, like she really gets into it. You know what I mean? She's really she's really selling us on just the whole Rand. I mean, when she approached Rand and now she's approaching Perrin. Matt walks by her and she just sort of dismisses him, which is hilarious because Matt's the one who would totally fall for something like that and is into, often around or in bars or whatever. And yeah, so I don't know, that is, yeah, it's cool. Fael is super upset about it, chases her out. They almost fight. So you get this Hawk and Falcon kind of actually fighting over Perrin, which is something that Min saw and something that we've seen through Egwene. So there's that, and so you can kind of imagine that this is going to be something that might continue for Perrin for a bit, and So their paths have crossed, and she has stopped and taken a second look at Perrin. We're gonna leave her where she is, like here in Tyr, for a while, and we're gonna just follow Perrin and Fael as they make preparations to go to the Two Rivers. So
yeah, well, let's just say Fael and Berelain do not get along. It's gonna be a love triangle. That we have. That we have going for it, right? And then they're threatening each other. She threatens her, right? Fael, she threatens Berelain. Before she knows it, Berelain has her on the floor, gasping for air.
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna fight. The women are fighting. They're fighting. But then Ruark steps in and convinces them, not to not continue fighting, right? So that's
yes.
All right, chapter 15, Into the Doorway. So we're back to Matt. He's in the Great Hold at the basement of the Stone of Tyr. After he learns about the red door frame, Tarmon Gai'don from Egwene, he finally finds his way to the Great Hold, and amongst a lot of boxes and jumble, he spots the door frame he is looking for. He hesitates in front of the Tarmon Gai'don, but steps through it. He finds himself in a huge round hall with spiraling columns reaching up to the ceiling. On the other side, he meets a strange snake-like human with black eyes and a skin that glistens like a snake's scales. The man says the seekers have come again and asks him if he is carrying iron or musical instruments. Matt denies this, although he wonders what the man thinks the knife he is holding is made out of. The man leads him through a strange hall and to three snake people who will answer his questions. Matt asks whether he should go home and is told to go to Rudion instead. While he is in there, the snake people get more and more agitated. They talk about not being able to handle the strain and push Matt into asking his questions fast. After there's panic and Matt is rushed into his final two questions, Matt says the last thing on earth he wants to do is go to Rudion and want to know, why should he have to go there? They tell him he needs to follow his fate and he will marry the daughter of the 9 moons and a few other cryptic things that he can't make sense of.
Yeah, there's a lot not to be made that you don't understand. I kind of want to slow down on this part just for a second because it is such an interesting part. They're known as I don't know if they say this in here or not, and I don't think it's spoiler, but they're known as the Elfin. They're this race of beings who are combined human appearance with like snake-like characteristics, like those features are snake-like. And we did hear in the Shadow Rising chapter 6 that they will answer 3 questions to anyone who visits them as long as they do not touch the shadow. If you do touch the shadow, those who do will face dire consequences, either death, madness, or worse. And so, that's interesting, right? I mean, you cannot be a dark friend and go in there and essentially try to, ask questions and stuff. So it's just an interesting. You got to remember too, a lot of these Tarmon Gai'don and these things that were found were from the Age of Legends that were used by Aes Sedai, both men and women, before the breaking of the world, before Lews Therin and the 100 Companions and the whole deal. So I don't know. I just kind of thought about this, but like it had to have been something that was maybe used by them, or that I'm just speculating. That's total speculation. That's just me thinking off the cuff here, that this door, was probably maybe used by them back in the day, and it was maybe not a bad thing, and maybe they understood it, because they do say it has been a long time. It's been a long time since the Seekers have come in here, and there's this known sort of like you're not supposed to bring fire and these iron and things like that. It's just some ancient pact that they have. So that's pretty cool. They do speak in a rather harsh dialect of the Old Tongue, which might be the reason why answers are not always easily understood, as the language is known to have several meanings when translated. All right, so when someone comes seeking true answers yet cannot speak the language, they bring a woman to interpret. The answers are always true, but given in the form of a riddle in most cases. Moraine, I'm not sure if this is said yet or not, so I'll kind of hold off on this part. And she steps out, right? I mean, she steps out at the end of this, right? But I'm not so sure what she says. Well, I'll look at that at the end here. But let me just go over what they say to Matt. So as he's in there. First of all, as they're traveling through this thing, it's trippy, right? I mean, the spiraling and whatever this feature is that he's in, it just doesn't make sense. It keeps kind of looking out the window, and it's really kind of hard to understand what it is that he's in. So it's a mystery, and I'm not going to answer all of it, because there's a lot of things we could explain about this place and things we could explain about these people. But again, this is just the first part of this, and all we really need to know is that they have given answers that it says the answers are always true, always true. So Matt, as he goes in, his first question to them, he's brought before them, and he says, "Should I go home to help my people?" He asked finally. So he's been struggling with that. He's been thinking about going back, even though when he left Perrin kind of knew Matt's not going back. I should go back. And 3 sets of slitted eyes lifted from him, reluctantly it seemed, and they studied the air above his head. Finally, the woman on the left said, "You must go to Rudion." So that's where he has to go. He has to go to Rudion. That's actually what Egwene was just told, that she has to go there, that Avienda has to go there, and that Egwene has to go there as well to see the wise ones. So as soon as she spoke, their eyes all dropped to him again, and they leaned forward, breathing deeply. At that moment, a bell tolled. This bell keeps kind of going off. They swayed upright, staring at one another, and then again, just over Matt's head. It's interesting that they look just over his head, because it reminds me of men looking at symbols just above people's heads. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So like that's just a thought that I had. So let's see. Yeah, they're swaying there. He is another. The woman on the left whispered. The strain. He is another. We find out here in a second that he's another one of these ta'veren. You have 2 ta'veren in here asking questions, because when Matt steps out later, Rand steps out, and then Moraine. They all were in there causing great strain on whatever this Tir'on Grial is. So she's kind of whispering to them that, hey, he's another one of them, and then they're talking about it's been so long. So yeah. All right. He glares up at him, Rudion, the light, right? He's just like, what does this mean? Why? And Rudion, he barked, "The light burn my bones to ash if I want to go to Rudion, and my blood on the ground if I will. Why should I? You are not answering my questions. You are supposed to answer, not hand me riddles. If you do not go to Rudion," the woman on the right said, "you will die." The bell tolled again, louder this time. Matt felt its tremor through his boots. The looks of the 3 shared were painfully anxious. He opened his mouth, but they were only concerned with each other. "The strain," they're like, "it's too great." They're freaking out, which is it's just crazy. They're all freaking out about the questions he's asking. He's like, burn your souls for a craven heart. I will that. Why will I die if I go to Rudion? I very likely will die if I try. It makes no. The man cut him off and spoke hurriedly. "You will have sidestepped the thread of fate, left your fate to drift on the winds of time, and you will be killed by those who do not want that fate fulfilled. Go now, you must go quickly." And he says, no, I will not go. He says, you have led me from the questions I wanted to ask and given me senseless answers. You will not leave it there. What fate are you talking about? I will have one clear answer out of you at least. A third time the bell sounded. Go, the man shouted. You have had your answers. You must go before it is too late. So let's see. What fate? Burn your hearts. What fate? So he won't give up here. He's not giving up at all. He's saying, no, I want to know. What fate? And then eventually, this is what I read at the top of the show, which is to marry the daughter of the nine moons, to die and to live again, and to live once more a part of what was, to give up half the light of the world to save the world. Go to Rudion, son of battles. Go to Rudion, trickster. Go, gambler. Go. And it's just cool because you finally get like a direct reference to him being what you were talking about, Matt's powers evolving. Who is Matt? What is he? And what is his role in all of this? And when you look at like mythology and you look at some of those, characters from ancient mythologies, like he's the trickster,
right?
I mean, he is the gambler.
Like the gambler.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, that's cool. We now kind of know who he is and the wild card that he will be in this series. So I don't know. I just wanted to kind of slow down on that. It's just such a crazy moment. And then Rand steps out. He has his air quote answers and Moraine as well. So again, setting the stage for like, okay, we're all about to go, and we needed some intel. So yeah, it's
and
cool.
I mean, so much. It seems like so much of everybody's prophecy is that they're gonna who they're gonna marry. I mean, Matt's right. Matt's getting one right here. The daughter of the nine moons.
Yeah, who's
and
that?
The Perrin, the falcon, and the
the
hawk.
hawk.
Right.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah, one, you had Egwene and Elaine all talking about like, look, I mean, Egwene's like, he's more like a brother to me. Do your thing. They've been kissing it up and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's cool.
All right, chapter 16, leave takings. Perrin has not slept very well after the attack on the stone. His sleep is littered with nightmares. The nightmares are trying to fight White Cloaks because the White Cloaks were killing Fael. After washing and getting dressed, he goes to find Loyal, noticing that little evidence remained of the night's attack because the Majahir had kicked livered servants out in force.
Oh yeah.
However, Perrin could still smell the blood that had been shed throughout the night and yearns to leave the stone. When he reaches Loyal's room, he sees that in fact, it was in fact made for an Ogier, even though the Stone of Tyr predated even that of Ogier stoneworks. Turns out that Loyal has spent most of his time after the attack writing notes about it for his book. His room is filled with flowers, but Perrin notices the swollen knot on Loyal's head and volunteers to get Moraine to see if she can heal it. Loyal explains that he considers it nothing worth bothering her for, especially since there were so many who truly needed her help. Perrin is startled when Fael stands up and informs him that Loyal was a hero. He gathered as many children as he could into a large room and held the door against the Trollocs and the Murdral. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
By the way, Loyal. Perrin asks if he's heard from her mother. She says he hasn't. He did say, he says, I saw Lanfear in the city yesterday. Apparently, Loyal's mother has chosen his wife already and means to have him settled in a steading as soon as she finds him. Just great. It is like this great just like thing about Loyal, right? Perrin urges this to ask Loyal if he wants to accompany him to the two rivers. Your mother definitely won't find you there. Loyal is he's reluctant to leave Rand, which would also mean disrupting his book. Perrin explains he needs Loyal because there are White Cloaks who are hurting people in Two Rivers, and Loyal agrees to go with him.
Yeah, and it's nuts. Fael has made him also swear that he will take her into the ways, right? That's this. She knows that she's heard the rumors too, that he's gonna go back to his people, and she said she already knows what he's thinking, which is he's gonna try to leave me. He thinks that I can't, he wants to protect me. He wants to make sure that I'm out of harm's way. He knows he's going into harm's way. And she knows the only way that he can get there is with an Ogier and going to the waste to get there quickly. And it's like, look, if you don't do that, then you're going to go the long way. It's going to take forever. And that's going to be agonizing for Perrin. He won't do that. So she knows to get to Loyal first. And before Perrin can say, no, Loyal, we're not taking her. Loyal, you're going to listen to me. You're going to help me. You're going to whatever. And he's already made some ancient oath to her. So he's He is doing what Fael wants, and that's that. Yeah, I love Lou. It's awesome. He's worried about his mother showing up and making, and again, hey, marriage arrangements, right? Worried about possibly, that's been hinted at since the Great Hunt, that Loyal might have to settle down and get married here soon. So, oh my gosh. One more thing, and that was basically just Elaine going over her note. She writes these letters to, in that chapter, you switch point of views and you go to Elaine real quick, and they talk about the Black Aja, they talk about Tanchico. It's referenced in Egwene's earlier dream. Mies kind of says there is evil in Tanchico, and she sees a lot of things there. Actually, Egwene sees some Angreal and Sangreal that we need to maybe go check out. And so Nynaeve and Elaine are going to go because Egwene has to go to Rudian. She has to go to the Wise Ones. So before they leave, though, it's like Elaine now is realizing she's not going with Rand. She's going to go on her own, regardless of where he goes, whether he stays or goes. She's going to go her separate way, and she wants to leave him with these letters. And they're two conflicting kind of letters, and they kind of go over that, and it is what it is. Lan is also super pissed because Nynaeve led him to believe, although she didn't lie, but like she led him to believe that she was going back to the tower. And he's like pissed because she's actually going after the Black Aja, and that's dangerous, and he doesn't want her to go into danger. And so he's like, I wish I could be there with you, and they have their moment.
Yeah, they do.
They have
about dang time.
Yeah, man, it's
Jeez.
Awesome. I know.
Yeah, and if she dies, he won't survive her for long. And he does it. He says that she gets upset because he kisses her for the world to see, and he's like, well, too bad. Yeah. He's right in front of Egwene and Elaine.
Oh my gosh, it's awesome. And so when Egwene asked Nynaeve, why she let him go back to Moraine, she answers that I will not have him remembering a broken oath to Moraine. So that's not how she wants. Like, if he were to break his oath and go with her, he's going to be carrying that. And that's not how she wants to have her relationship start with Lan. No way. I'm not going to be in any debt to Moraine or think we did Moraine wrong or whatever. She doesn't want that. So she's not sure how she will get Lan away from Moraine. But, quote, what must be done can be done. So she basically saying, what must be done, which is to get Lan away from Moraine, it can be done, and I will do it, and I will figure it out. So it's just that determination that, like, we're meant to be together. There's this hiccup. Moraine is, whatever. And we find out that Moraine has her own plans, and
right.
It's cool. So, yeah, that was neat. That was a neat little neat little connection for those, because they're about to all part ways and go separate ways, and so they had their moment where they're kind of working through that. So.
Okay, chapter 17 here. We get back to Tom, actually. So this is actually another chapter that's kind of split up on a few different things. We have Tom, we have Min, we jump back to her, and then we have Sarah. So with Tom, he's like walking through the Stone of Tyr. He's aching and hurting, right? He's pretty tired. He talks to a group of servants, the pretense kind of trying to raise spirits, but in fact, he's using his skills at Deus Damar to try and help Rand. He's saying things like, it's a shame that no one asked why those barges were at the dock, because he talks to servants about how Trollocs were there. He mentions that the High Lords should have asked about it, and sows doubt into the minds of the servants. If they can't trust the High Lords, they will have turned to basically Rand al'Thor. Which is pretty good.
Yeah. Well, Tom is a master at this game, right? I mean, he wants the people to follow Rand, and he knows that he needs their support, and it's way more difficult. If everyone is just afraid of Rand and they don't trust him, and they're just like, well, we know the High Lords, but Tom's sowing the seed of doubt, which is that, hey, they're not looking. You're going to have to turn to somebody else, because you're being attacked. Things are happening here at the Stone of Tyr that have never happened before, and the only person who seems to be able to handle this is Rand al'Thor, the Dragon Reborn. And so those rumors start to kind of do their thing, and he's playing his part. Moraine recognizes that, and realizes that he is a master at this game. He truly is, a master at Deus Damar. And actually, let me get to that part real quick. So we'll get into the High Lords later, because there's something there's implications here for everything he's saying and the seeds that Tom is sowing here, and we'll talk about that later in a Rand chapter. But Moiraine goes on to talk about the time Tom spent at the Andoran royal court. She implies that Tom might have had something to do with the death of Tarmon Gai'don, and then Morgase and her rise to power and all that stuff. I feel like this? Yeah, this is it. I mean, this is where. Okay, so let's see. He points out that this is Tom talking to Moiraine. He points out that aiding Rand means that she has high connections in the tower. Someone in the hall of the White Tower. It is Suan Sanche who gives Moiraine the protection she needs to stay close to Rand. Moiraine replies that not using her house in her title is by choice, because House Domadrid had a deservedly unpleasant reputation and still does. And we can talk about that just as a refresher in a second. Really, it's tie back to King Laemon and the Aiel War and everything that happened in Cairhien and her ties and her family ties to that. Moiraine wants him to go, so she's convincing Tom to go with Elaine and Nynaeve to Tanchico to protect them. Your knowledge and skills might keep them alive. Tom thinks that she wants him out of the way, as it will leave the boy naked to her manipulation. Moiraine insists that going to Tanchico will not kill him, and by the first oath you know it's true. Tom is not convinced, and so Moiraine uses Elaine and his nephew Owen as levers to get what she wants. In return for Tom going to Tanchico, she will give him the names of the Red Sisters who gentled Owen after Tanchico. That's a pretty big deal. I almost forgot about that. Which is that, like, he's always had, since the beginning, you've wondered, like, why, Tom has this mysterious past. There's some tension between him and between, his time at court and in Caemlyn. And then he's a Gleeman. Moiraine knows his backstory, knows his nephew, knows that he was gentled and then ends up dying. And it was these Red Sisters that did it. And Tom wants revenge on them. And she says, I'll give you their names. And he's like, I'll take them. I mean, Tom is the guy who we said rumored, killed the king of Cairhien, right? Because of all that plotting and all that stuff that was going on, back in the day. And then his lover, his girlfriend at the time, was killed. Was it Dana?
Yeah. Dana. Yep.
Yeah, is killed, and so then he's like, okay. I mean, you don't mess with Tom. Tom is something else, man. He is another level. I love his character.
Yeah, I do too. And as you said, I mean, the thing I like about Tom too is he's such a good break from the other characters, because he's obviously a lot older and he has all these experiences which are sort of mysterious. And then while other people, it's like, okay, things seem to go good for them. Things have seemingly gone pretty awful for Tom, and kind of the other way, where it's a good kind of reminder that things are not as great as they seem, right? It's like we see Elaine kiss Rand and we're like, oh, this is great. And then you cut back to Tom and you're like, oh yeah, Tom lost his girlfriend. He got attacked. He hurt his leg.
Right. Yeah. So, and it's interesting to see these two kind of guides who have been kind of guiding, Moiraine's been talking to Egwene quite a bit, and Tom has been talking a lot Rand has been talking to Moiraine quite a bit as well, but Tom, he seems to really trust Tom, and then Tom kind of gets close with Matt, and he's just been, kind of guiding these guys on the side. So, yeah, it's neat. Couple more things in this chapter, and then we can kind of we move on real quick. Just quickly, Min at the White Tower, we learn that Suan Sanche is she's heard about Mazrim Taim. She wants he's another false dragon. That's a big name. We're going to talk more about Mazrim Taim as we move forward in the story. He's a false dragon who, as soon as he is captured, she wants him gentled on the spot, and that is against the law. I'm pretty sure he has to come back and be tried and have a fair trial. But she says, no, I'm not going to have another one of these situations. Gentle him on the spot. I don't know Matt, it sounds like they're taking the law on their own. It sounds like they're just, I mean, like, can we? Is it until you've done some wrong? Until you've done some wrong, what is a crime to be
I don't know that
Chandler?
I don't know that you're innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
In Rand land.
Now again,
It seems like the way the Aes Sedai work, you're just guilty.
Yeah, you just as soon as you're born, as soon as we find it. Yeah, which goes back to Owen. Like, if you haven't done anything wrong, but yet we're gonna gentle him, and that ultimately led to his death. Do we not? Oh, is there not something there? But what? But then the tough spot there is, what else do you do? Do you wait until they commit the crime? And is that also a crime in of itself, that you knew something bad was going to happen, but yet you did nothing? So it is sort of a tough spot that they're in, but it's interesting. So there's that. Just a quick thing, and then as you said, Sarah is there. She has been sent to work on a farm by Swan, so that she can't tell what she saw when she escorted Min in, because we know that Min is undercover, and that Swan is kind of using her to look around and see the different symbols associated with various Aes Sedai or Logain or whoever, and she doesn't want. So that girl's just punished, Matt, because she brought somebody into the tower.
Pretty much.
I mean, by the way, I hope everyone knows we totally just teasing.
We definitely like to we definitely like to tease about.
This is crazy. The reason I love the Age of Legends so much is because I love the idea of the Aes Sedai, and I love this headquarters. To me, it reminds me of like a Jedi temple. And I often get on the Jedi as well, too, just so you know. So in Star Wars, I get on Jedi all the time for all of their. But I love them at the same time. I love their knowledge, and I love all of their cool sorcery and all their magic and their abilities and their libraries full of books and resources. But every once in a while, I gotta question things. I gotta say, hey, what did this girl do wrong? But yeah, she's approached by another unknown channeler, who she thinks is an Aes Sedai, and she's questioned very harshly about Min's arrival, and she's basically, she's tortured. She's tortured for that information. So it's pretty bad. Yeah.
Okay, well, we have 18, and then I think we're leaving the last two for extended. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll just do two. Yeah, so we'll go at 18, and I'll do a quick little summary on the last two there, and we'll extend that in our extended edition. But chapter 18. So Perrin is set up to leave, right? He is going to leave, and interestingly here, remember Perrin was he helped. Gaul, was it Gaul escape from, like, earlier he helped, and so Gaul kind of feels like he owes him something, and then Bane and Chiad they're also Aiel, Maidens of the Spear, who want to go with Perrin. I'm sorry, they accompany Fael, but Fael is going with Perrin. Let's be clear about that. Actually, let's rephrase it. Perrin is going to follow Fael. She gets so upset that he won't just accept that, like, hey, I have Loyal and I'm going, so you can just say, hey, can I go with you? And when he won't ask to go with her, she basically says, fine, then you can just follow me from a distance. You're not with me, but you can follow after me. And so she's totally just sort of, having this, I don't know, there's this, what's going on there? It's complex. I don't know. It's interesting. Their dynamic. Fael's really getting on Perrin. She's still upset about the Barrelane situation. And, I don't know. She wants Perrin to kind of come to her. But, it's tough because Perrin loves her and he has feelings for her, but yet he won't share those because he thinks he is a dead man walking. He thinks that since he's killed some of these White Cloaks and he's going to go back and face these White Cloaks, that maybe they're terrorizing his people because of him. He thinks he's going back to die. And that he doesn't want Fael to see that. He doesn't want her roped into all of this. So he just can't tell her that. And then she wants him to say, hey, come with me. I want you to be with me and I want you to be near me. And he can't tell her why he doesn't want to. It's what Robert Jordan does. He puts us in these situations, and I love it, right. Where it's sort of like, man, we know both sides. And so there's that dramatic irony where we're like, oh my gosh, come on.
Doesn't Perrin know that he's friends and part of this with Rand al'Thor, who's clearly on a path to just take everything over? I mean, at some point, yeah, it's time to put the White Cloaks in their place.
Hey, I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to that. I think that's what he's going to do something. He's headed there for sure. Yeah, it is like they all kind of slowly start to realize how important they are to Rand, and like as Rand gets more serious about this quest and his role in saving the world and being there at the last battle, they get more serious. You can see it in these chapters right here. They need answers. They want to know what to do. They are starting to recognize the connection and the pull between each of them, and yeah, it's pretty cool to see them struggle with that, but yet at the same time play their role, do what they're supposed to do in this fight for the light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's cool. All right, now let me just do a quick little. We're going to talk about the. We're going to kind of do a separate extended edition here where we talk about Tenchiko and Wave Dancer leaving Tyr. This is from Elaine's point of view. You kind of just pick up with them at the docks, and we're going to learn about where they're going. They're going with the Sea Folk, and they're using their ship because it's the fastest ship that they can, and they have some special things that they're going to kind of say to them to get on the ship. Moraine has given them advice. They have money. They have what they need to get quickly to Tenchiko. But their adventure on the Wave Dancer sets up a whole nother arc and a whole nother group of people that are really interesting. The Sea Folk are really cool. Yeah.
And I will say, and we'll talk obviously more about this in extended, but seeing Elaine, and because we've had so much of Egwene and Nynaeve, and getting Elaine and Nynaeve is great because their personalities are really like separate, like opposite sides of the spectrum, and Egwene's like kind of there in the middle, right? Nynaeve's kind of hot-headed, Elaine's really passive, Egwene's kind of in the middle, and so like when Elaine and Nynaeve are like kind of arguing over like how to talk to the ferry driver or whatever, and she's like, you're giving him too much money and like all this stuff. And so it's kind of good.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool to see their dynamic and to see, those two get to know each other better. And then they're so different. And you had that in between where Egwene was kind of a peace. Well, Elaine was actually the peacekeeper. But then Nynaeve and Egwene were from the same place. They had this history. Now these two completely separate upbringings, different. One from a royal court and one a wisdom from a small village. So, and really we just kind of stay on. We learn in chapter 20. This is where we're kind of gonna end it. Winds rising. We learn again more about the setting as Wave Dancer, our ship, and we realize that Tom and Julian are back. Julian Sandar is back. It was a guy who helped Matt get into the stone. He's that thief catcher, and he's here with Tom. They've both been convinced that they need to show up and maybe escort Nynaeve and Elaine, be with them, be close, and we'll talk more about who it was that kind of urged them into coming on this trip. But that's kind of where we'll leave that. That's cool. The Sea Folk are interesting, and they have their own lore. They have their own culture that we can explore, and they are masters of the ocean. I mean, they can do things that are really interesting. We learn about their relationship with the Aes Sedai, and even the Shan-Chen and everything that's been kind of going on. Yeah, it's interesting. The people like Bail Doman and those guys who are on ships and who travel quickly and can move across, they are your sources of information, right? They are traveling down rivers from country to country. They're traders, and they know a lot of the news and stuff. It's back to Padon Fane, who was your peddler, shows up and he has information from other countries. So, we're gonna learn a lot on this ship.
Mm-hmm. Okay, should we go back and do our village council? I think I caused us to skip that. So let's go back and do that, and we're gonna be breaking down Angreal, Sa Angreal, and Ter Angreal.
Yeah, and I just want to go over this because as you guys, as we saw in this most recent batch of chapters in the Shadow Rising, we have a lot. There are a lot of these things mentioned. So we have an Angreal, which is an object which allows those who can channel to draw more of the one power than they normally could without harming themselves. And typically, they are these like little figurines. It would be like if you had like an action figure, think as big as, the size of an action figure, and you hold it, or even smaller, a little trinket or something that is that's made, and you can, by holding on to that, physical touch, whatever, or maybe even channeling into it, through it, whatever you're tapped into, you can pull more of the one power. So we know that Moraine has one at the start of the series. Here's just a quick description. So while all Ungreal offer this benefit, they do vary considerably in strength. The amount of additional power to which they provide access is dependent on both the Ungreal's strength and the channeler's own strength in the power. The stronger the channeler, the more power an Ungreal provides. So it's not like there's two factors: the channeler and even various Ungreal. So let's say Matt and I are similar in strength. We're the same strength-wise, but I have an Ungreal that gives me more access to the power, and it will allow me to channel more than I. And then you have one that is less than mine. Even though we were the same in power, if I have a better Ungreal than you do, I can channel more power, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's important. So that's like those objects of power, which I think are really cool. In any video game or any
right.
fantasy story.
It's like a relic. It's think of like a crystal or something that just allows you to tap into more of that power. Or
right. Exactly. And so I guess while I have it here, so Saw Ungreal are like Ungreal, but they are much more powerful. All known Ungreal and Saw Ungreal can amplify either Saidin or Saidar. None are known to exist that can be used by both a man and a woman. One Saw Ungreal is I'm gonna leave that. Gotta be careful in what I say here.
Don't want to go too spoilery.
Yeah, and I do want to just talk about them because we know what an Ungreal is. We've experienced that. We do know that Kalendor is a Saw Ungreal. So I feel like now I can talk to Matt about that, which is Lanfear tells Rand that he doesn't even do 1/10 of what he could do with it. What she implies is that he is a super strong channeler, and that Saw Ungreal is one of the most powerful. He just got Kalendor the sword, right? He can channel through that in a way that he doesn't even understand, and there's so much you can do with it. So that's interesting, and I don't even want to talk too much about Kalendor just because there are some really interesting things with it. Obviously, we have a long ways to go, and it's something new that Rand has acquired. But it definitely can amplify his ability with that. So, and there are other Saw Ungreals that we will get to. You guys have to imagine, right, in this series that we're gonna come across other Aes Sedai. Well, we already know where we are currently. That in the Great Hold down below, you have a whole bunch of Tyr Ungreal, possibly Ungreal. Saw Ungreal are more rare, obviously. If they've got that extra kind of power level, there's not a lot of those. There are way more Ungreal, fewer Saw Ungreal, and so those are kind of related. Those are both things, objects that you can use, that you can channel, a channeler can use to increase their power, increase their access to the power, and what have you. Now, a Tyr Ungreal are objects of the one power that perform specific functions. So the Tyr Ungreal do not require the one power to be used for their activation. An example of that is the stone ring that Varen Sedai gives Egwene. So Egwene, that is it's on a cord, and it just kind of hangs down, and it lays on her chest, and just by it touching her skin, she then is able to enter the world of dreams. And anyone, that she didn't have to do it. Yeah, exactly. She didn't have to channel power into that. It was an object that was made with the power, that was made specially as almost like a device that would allow anybody to access it, which is pretty cool. In these most recent chapters, we find that Matt has actually gone into a twisted red stone door frame, which is called a Tyr Ungreal. He can't channel. We know that Matt can't channel, but yet he could walk into the same door, and it's a door that was power made, as I said, created during the time or during the Age of Legends, and he could access the same thing that these other channelers could. So it's connected to the one power, made by it, but yet it has nothing to do with amplifying somebody's power. And they're normally, they're totally different. They can range in size from a doorway, as we see here, to a small, well, a little bit larger than like a small stone ring, that is not a ring that you would wear. But yeah, they can be small objects, large objects.
So are the portal stones then Tarmon Gai'don, or they're something else?
They're something else. Yeah, they are totally something else. I don't, Matt always asks these great questions. If I'm wrong on that, someone let me know. But I don't think I am. I think those are just called portal stones. They have their own name, their own function. They seem to be very, very different because you did have to channel to use them. If you were a non-channeler,
so it could be a Sa'angreal.
Yeah, it's different.
Maybe
I guess
not.
it's
or it still could just be its own thing.
I think it's just its own thing but that's really interesting, right? I mean, if Matt would go over and sat down on the stone, no matter what he did to the stone, I don't think he could activate it or use it. But a channeler, like Lanfear and Varen when she was there, and Rand, they realized there were symbols that you had to almost like press with the power, and that you had to manipulate and focus on, or use the power and then focus on the symbol, and that would take you to a particular realm or world, the world of possibility, or the world of what if, or whatever you want to call that, a mirror world, where you could then like the difference in, gosh, they spend one day on the road, and it felt like in the real world they had gone 10 days worth. They had outpaced Podon Fane back in the Great Hunt. So that was, that's an interesting one. I never even thought about putting those two together. This is why I love talking to Matt about this kind of stuff, because he challenges me and he makes me think about these things. I'm almost positive they're not in the same category at all. Just portal stones are portal stones. And for that simple reason that if it were a Tarmon Gai'don, anybody could tap into it and use it. You wouldn't have to be a channeler. And then, as you said, you start thinking about Assault on Gai'don. It doesn't magnify your power. You're not channeling through the portal stone and amplifying your power. It's something separate. Although it seems like it's related to the power in some way. It's something. It's a relic from the Age of Legends. So, yeah, great freaking question.
Okay, I don't think we have any pigeons today.
No, we do have a few. We had some comments over on Patreon. Again, thanks to everybody who we've recently started to kind of ramp up. If you go look to our listeners who have been with us since we started this, really appreciate it. I saw some of you have left your Twitter handles in on the discussion post. I would love for you guys, if you're on Twitter, hashtag Twitter of Time, get on there, enjoy it, have fun. Rafe is on there. All of the other great Wheel of Time content creators are on there. I've had a chance to kind of meet some of them and talk with them and collaborate a little bit. It's really exciting and it's really cool. To be on the Dusty Wheel, I still kind of get blown away by that. Like I love being on there with Innkeeper Hatch. That was really, really freaking cool. And I'm hoping for more of those times and experiences, just because it's such an open, welcoming community, and it's so vast. There's so much here. And some of these people have been reading this series for just years upon year. This is their go-to. It's what they read over and over and over again. And I love it. So if you get on that discussion thread on Patreon, you can leave a comment. If you have a comment or something specific to Matt doesn't read those. I read those. And so if you want to do something spoiler, just put spoiler. Lady Heather often will just put spoiler and do a bunch of returns. And then we'll kind of talk spoiler stuff, or send me a message on there. I did just start to chat with Matt's brother. We're going to have him on for a couple more episodes. I think some spoiler stuff. We were kind of dancing around spoilers there with Matt last time. And Nicole Whitaker is Nicole Sedai. She's a little bit further than where Matt is. And so she's someone who's been a friend of our podcast, all of our podcasting projects, going to the very first podcast that we ever started. So she's a wonderful friend, and she loves this series, and she has a really cool, unique kind of insight on it, and comes at it from a different perspective. And it's been neat to talk with her. So I'm going to have her on for a few more Patreon exclusive things. And I'm trying to get a hold of a few of our other patrons to maybe do some discussion there, a non-spoiler and maybe spoiler. It just kind of depends. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. So be sure to check that out. Also, go check out the YouTube page. We have completely overhauled that, and I want to give him a shout out here because let me see here. Scott Bishop, by the way, thank you so much for all of the that's a longtime reader of the Wheel of Time series who went to our YouTube page, and I've set it up where there's playlists. You can basically just march right through the Eye of the World, the Great Hunt, the Dragon Reborn, and then now into the Shadow Rising. Upped the clip art on that, made it look really good because I want people to be, when the show comes out, I want people to find. I think this is like this journey and this adventure with Matt and just like sharing this. We get off these calls or we get off this podcast. We shut her down and then Matt will start asking more questions because he's read a couple of chapters. Just 2 or 3 beyond.
Yeah, right now I'm about chapter 22.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about that, and it's just been fun. It's a fun adventure. It's a fun journey, and I hope when people get further in, they'll send us some thoughts. We're willing to do standalone episodes where it's a response to your guys' communication about the first 3 books. Matt and I feel real comfortable now going back and talking about that first arc and your thoughts. So if you're a listener and you got to this point and you're like, you know what, I'd love to be in on that conversation, or I'd love for you guys to kind of go back and touch on something that maybe we missed because we are kind of doing this in parts. Let's do that because I think that would be fantastic. But again, Scott, thank you so much, man, because he's gone through and just he's been pointing out some things that either he wanted us to touch on more, 2, just his thoughts on the chapters, which is pretty cool. Because when you guys leave your comments and your thoughts, for me, it does a lot, and I share them with Matt when they're not spoiler, because you touch on something that we didn't touch on, and it helps me to remember the series better, to further ingrain it, because I have a connection with you guys, and I have it's more memorable. You know what I mean? Versus I just read it. When you read something and then you discuss it with somebody, it sticks. And it just makes it more memorable, and that's what I want. That's what a book club is kind of all about, and that's what I love. I love that type of community building and relationships and all that good stuff. So, yeah,
absolutely. So, yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right, Ez. It is time to say farewell. We want to thank you for answering the call. In our next episode, we will be discussing the Shadow Risings chapters 20 through 27.
Absolutely. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a message at thehornofvalir@gmail.com.
We will see you soon, and remember that the grave is no bar to our call.